Hello, my name is Sergeant Anthony Edward Lewis, United States Army Infantry, retired, sorry for the hair, and prior service Marine. Today is February 23rd, Sunday, 2025. It's approximately 16:45, that's 4:45 p.m. civilian time, local time. And in the next half hour, it's my intention to record a video that describes the outline of a series of steps that can be used to assist someone who's planning on being being of assistance to someone who has disabilities and is traveling on a business trip, or I got a haircut. I did. You can't tell, but I apologize. I'm doing this on behalf of my fiance and very good friend, Dr. Jokima Hiller, who is an instructor at IU and has asked me to put together this presentation for individuals that are a part of one of her classes in a program. In summary, there's really only 4 components to the checklist of things. The first component is you have to establish, and I always advocate writing it down, your charter, your mission statement, your vision. You should actually write it down, because it's good for 2 reasons. One, the process of writing things down helps to engage the memory mechanisms. And the other is because in writing it down, you create an artifact, you create a historical document, you create something that you can refer back to. So step 1 is create your mission statement. Number 2, you have to, it helps if you're able to start identifying important aspects of your communications. Your ability to communicate with someone, this is a skill. There are people who go to college to get 4-year degrees on communications. Communications means a variety of things. It can get really broad fast. But if you're able to identify the important aspects of your communication with somebody, it's going to help tremendously. In the Army, I'm a veteran, like I said, the doctrine, the infantry doctrine, literally, it requires you to identify in advance your primary, secondary, alternative, or contingent, and emergency modes of communications. Every infantry soldier in America knows this. This is a part of what is established in advance in order to ensure that regardless of whatever may happen, you have a reliable way in which you're able to communicate with other members of your team. It's not just about you. You have the ability in advance to establish what your plan is going to be for communication. So step 1 is mission and vision. Step 2 is your mode of communications. You should write down, okay, this is how we're going to communicate under certain circumstances. Number 3 is you want to have a checklist. Just have a simple checklist. You have a checklist when you go grocery shopping. Have a checklist of the things that you want to have in place before movement and during execution. You have a checklist that's correlated with your timeline for events so that you can see the end from the beginning. You know everything that you need before you even start, and everything you're able to account for in advance, everything that you reasonably expect you're going to need while you're in movement, while you're in motion. So you've got mission statement, you've got communications plan, you've got a checklist, and you also finally, this is a 4-point plan. You might add a fifth step, but I'll save that for last. You have to have your risk assessment. The Army is I remember when the United States Army came up with this policy, this doctrine of establishing your risk assessments. You have the ability to assess and determine in advance what some of the obstacles could be. If you were going outside during a blizzard to get to a grocery store to pick up some provisions, well, one of the first things you might want to do is some recon. Call ahead, see if the store is even open. You can turn on the news. You can get a weather report. You can get a traffic report online. You can do some research. You can call ahead. You can collect some intelligence that's going to help ensure that if you actually are going to be brave enough to weather the elements, that it's going to lead to success. So, contingency planning and risk assessments all involve simply writing down exactly what it is you anticipate could be a problem and documenting what it is you intend to do in the event of such contingencies. You keep a spare tire in your car for the contingency of a flat tire. You have AAA on speed dial for the contingency that you might have a breakdown. You call the store in order to collect intelligence about the status, the situation on the ground in the area that you intend to get to, so that there are no surprises after you get there. You have emergency contact information on speed dial in the event that, regardless of whatever it is you have planned with your checklist, you have a fallback plan for dealing with anything that you didn't plan on. The contingency planning process, actually, you get better at it with practice. So if you take the time to anticipate what could become a problem, then you'll get better at it, and that actually improves the odds that no matter whatever happens, you have a plan for it. Now, here it is. Those are the 4 major points for my outline on how to assist somebody with disabilities who is trying to go on a vacation, trying to go to a hospital visit, trying to visit family, trying to go to a symposium or a conference. If your duty, your job, your responsibility is to stand right next to that person and make sure that they're successful with their mission, the first thing you want to do, step 1, is express that. You can Google what is involved with the PMI project manager certification process for creating a mission statement and vision statement. And after you write it down, one of the things, just because of the nature of how the human mind works, as soon as you write it down, your mind automatically, this is just the way in which God made us, starts forming plans on what's necessary to succeed, not how to avoid what's going to cause you to fail. What is necessary to succeed? So if you have that charter, that's the language that PMI uses. If you have that express statement of what the goal, the mission, the vision, the purpose is, it actually works to your advantage and helps ensure that you're able to accomplish it. You at least have the standard. If you create a charter of what it is you want to accomplish and you fail, you know exactly how you failed. You're just simply going to refer to what you set out to do at the beginning and contrast that with exactly what actually happened. So that charter is actually kind of important. It sets the tone. It sets the standard. It becomes the goal that everything else gets connected to. So that's step one. So you have the charter. You've taken the time to list and communicate with anyone on your team, anyone involved with this project, the ways in which you intend to be able to communicate during this exercise, during this mission, during this operation. I have walkie-talkies in my car and in Joaquima's. If anything happens to our phones, guess what? We can still communicate. If we're within a certain physical range, that's not a coincidence. She has an emergency phone. I made sure that I'm paying for it. We have the ability to communicate via text, through direct messaging, and we have the ability to indirectly communicate through leaving messages at any facility or any organization or agency that she's going to come in contact with. So I can leave messages at the hotel. I can leave messages at the office. She can leave messages for me at my job. We indirectly have the ability to communicate in a variety of different ways. And it's important to have those modes of communications established in advance. They don't come into existence out of the vacuum. It's a part of the plan to make sure that regardless of anything that you plan or regardless of what happens, in spite of your plans, you have reliable, consistent communications. And you can talk about what those modes of communications are going to be and how they're used and how they operate. Step 3, checklists. You have to have a checklist. And in the Army, we call these checklists pre-combat checks and pre-combat inspections. One of the great things about all of the things that you're able to write down, guess what? Anytime later as you experience things, you can change them, you can modify them, you can enhance them, you can expand on them. It's important to actually keep on top of these things. It helps improve the odds of your success. So you got your checklist. You know you need what? Your phone. Okay, put that on the list. Check. You know that you need snacks. Never know if you're going to be stuck somewhere and maybe you're waiting and you get hungry. Take snacks. Everybody should have a go bag. If you're going outside the house, have an emergency go bag. You might need a change of clothes. You might need emergency medication. That's an item on your checklist. These are all items on your checklist. As soon as you start putting together your checklist, almost like putting together a grocery list, as soon as you start the process of writing down the different things you reasonably expect you're going to need for any mission, that's when you also come across or start to realize there's other stuff that's missing that need to go on the checklist. The process of putting together the checklist helps you improve your ability to put together checklists. So you can edit and modify anything that you've written down, but you can't modify or edit a blank sheet of paper. So start brainstorming while you're doing this sort of thing. It gets better with practice. So what are we up to now? Charter, mission statement, vision statement, the goal, the express stated standard for success with your operation. Number 2, communications. Actually write it down. Take the time to write. It doesn't. You could put it on an index card and lose it next week, but the process of writing it down actually imprints your memory. So write it down. Talk with the individual that you intend to coordinate with, the person that you intend to communicate with, so that there is cohesion, there's coordination, there's cooperation, there's common understanding. Expectations get set as soon as you start having the conversation about how you're going to communicate, regardless of circumstances. Number 3, checklist. You have to have that checklist. And after you've reviewed your checklist, guess what? Review it again. Communicate with whoever it is you're working with. What's missing on this checklist? What haven't we anticipated that we're going to need? And number 4, contingency planning. Now, this is not the same as FEMA disaster recovery planning. No, doesn't have to be that complicated. As soon as you start writing it down, the way in which you view the whole world starts to change. You're not trying to imagine how it is you're going to handle an earthquake or a tornado or a flood. No, just the risk associated, the reasonable, practical risks you see associated with trying to get from point A to point B, making stops at C, D, and E along the way. You have the ability to anticipate in advance things that could stand in your way, obstacles that could confound your ability of completing your mission. Point A, the first bullet pointed issue, it's a word that starts with the letter C. It'll come to me. At any rate, you get the picture. The first step is to identify your mission. And so the 4th step is anticipating anything that might get in your way of accomplishing the first step. Kind of makes sense, right? A full circle right there. If there was a 5th step, I would say it involves TTPs. The Army uses the expression techniques, tactics, and procedures, TTPs. And you can actually document what that is. I'm not talking about ISO 9000 level stuff. But the Army, because of its culture, because of its history, because of its lessons learned, it has books and regulations on anything and everything it ever does. And you can take the time to actually itemize, identify, document everything involved with a variety of tasks. And I wouldn't put that burden on you because you're not really trying to write a book about your experience in helping somebody get to a trade show. You don't need to do all that in order to get it done. But the Army does have doctrine that expresses how you are supposed to perform everything. And you could take it to that extent, but it's not practical. You got the 4 steps that I just outlined that can help you get your mind right in accomplishing a goal of helping somebody deal with obstacles to accomplish the goal. And the work is very valuable and important. People without disabilities take a lot for granted. Being able to bridge the gap for somebody who has mobility issues or health complications or even mental problems, it matters. The best way to ensure that you're able to support somebody with such disadvantages,
Motion detected at front door.
it helps us, individuals without disabilities, become better people.